Can you recall the precise moment you understood gravity? Not the word, not the principle explained by an elder leaning over dust-scratched slate, but the feeling. That first terrifying, exhilarating lurch when the earth pulled you down from a low wall, the shock of solidity rushing up to meet your small, flying dream. My awakening was not unlike that, except the wall was infinity, and the solidity, it was the fragile, bewildering cage of flesh and bone. One dawn, swimming in the warm, salty darkness before true consciousness, I simply knew I was the current within the river, and also the distant, impossible source spring, and simultaneously the parched bank watching it flow by. The sheer, silent weight of that comprehension settled into my child's frame like cold lead poured into a vessel of thin glass. This is where it begins. Not with choirs of angels, but with the crushing, luminous loneliness of being utterly singular within a world woven from threads of the ordinary. The village was a basket woven from sun-baked mud and the scent of drying figs. My hands learned the grain of wood, the stubbornness of clay. I shaped doves, clumsy at first, then startlingly alive under my fingers. Yet, while my hands worked the tangible, my mind wandered vast, uncharted deserts. The laughter of other children was a foreign language, melodic but indecipherable. Their games of chase seemed like frantic insects scurrying over a pattern only I could see etched deep beneath the soil. My mother's eyes held a quiet storm, a reflection of the impossible star that had guided her steps years before, a star I now felt burning coldly within my own chest. Her love was a sanctuary, thick and warm like wool in winter, yet it couldn't dispel the chill of isolation. To know the intricate humming blueprint of creation humming beneath every stone, every blade of grass, every fleeting thought in a neighbor's head. It was not power, not then. It was an exquisite, unbearable sensitivity. A spiderweb catching not flies, but the unvoiced sorrows, the hidden shames, the desperate, flickering hopes of everyone who passed near. I felt them all, vibrating along the filaments of my being. My first profound, hidden truth? Divinity, when clothed in humanity, feels less like sovereignty and more like an exposed nerve ending dragged across the raw texture of the world. The wonder wasn't in the knowing. It was in the agonizing feeling of every fracture in existence. I fled, not towards destiny, but away from the suffocating press of unspoken needs. The desert wasn't empty. Oh no, it was a vast amphitheater sculpted by wind and time, filled with the roaring silence of my own fragmented self. The sun was a hammer on an anvil, forging my thoughts into sharper, harder shapes. 40 days, 40 lifetimes. The hunger was a familiar companion, the gnawing void I'd carried since that first dawn of knowing. But the temptations, they weren't grotesque devils with cloven feet. They were seductive, logical whispers echoing from the deepest caverns of my own exhaustion. Ease their suffering instantly, murmured the whisper of power, showing me visions of golden cities rising effortlessly from sand, bellies forever full. Prove yourself undeniable, hissed the whisper of spectacle, painting images of angels catching me mid-fall from the temple's dizzying height, gasps of awe turning to instant, unquestioning faith. Take control, growled the whisper of dominion, offering the heavy, cold scepter of earthly kingdoms, promising order through force. Here lies the meticulous psychoanalysis the raw core. The greatest battle wasn't against external evil, but against the very human, utterly reasonable desire within me to end the agony, mine and theirs, by any efficient, undeniable means. To bypass the messy, slow, painful work of transformation. To force the light. To not be misunderstood. The victory in the desert wasn't defiance. It was a profound, bone-deep surrender to the terrible, beautiful inefficiency of love. I chose the seed over the instantaneous harvest, the hidden leaven over the miraculous banquet. I chose the long, hard road of invitation, not coercion. Because love, true love, cannot be commanded into being. It must be kindled, breath by fragile breath. I sought them out, not for adoration, but for the fragile bridge their presence offered back towards the shared human shore. Fishermen smelling of brine and disappointment, their nets heavy with emptiness. A tax collector radiating the metallic scent of isolation amidst crowds. They were flawed mirrors, reflecting not my divinity, but shards of the universal human condition I had come to embrace. We walked. Oh, how we walked. Dust became our sacrament, worn sandals our shared vow. I spoke in riddles spun from sunlight and mustard seeds, from buried coins and wayward suns, not to obscure, but because the truth I carried was too vast, too bright for direct sight. It needed the soft focus of parable, the gentle landing of a story. Did they understand? Rarely fully. Their questions were often clumsy nets cast into deep water, hauling up confusion instead of clarity. Yet, in their stumbling, their petty arguments over precedents, their fleeting doubts when storms threatened our tiny boat, I found a perverse solace. Here was the messy, beautiful reality I had embraced, connection forged, not in perfect understanding, but in shared journey, shared bread, shared vulnerability. The most profound loneliness isn't being unknown. It's standing amidst those who think they know you, yet grasp only the outermost shell. My companions loved the idea taking shape around me, the hope I ignited. Could they love the weary man who wept for a dead friend, who craved silence after the crowds pressed in like a suffocating tide? That was the hidden ache, to be seen, truly seen, beneath the gathering mantle of expectation, and loved for the ache itself. The signs, the water becoming wine, the calming of the storm, the touch that returned sight or movement. These were not displays. They were leaks, moments where the unbearable pressure of the light within me, the sheer force of compassion for a specific crushing human pain, breached the dam of my carefully maintained humanity. It was never easy. Each act was a tearing. Imagine holding back an ocean with your bare hands, your muscles screaming, the pressure immense. And then, for one shattered instant, for her tears, for his despair, letting a single powerful jet burst through. The relief for them was immediate. For me, it was an exhaustion that went to the marrow, a sense of violation against the natural order I revered. I felt the grain of the universe protest, the deeper truth, the one that chills me still. Sometimes, the greatest miracle was not intervening. Watching the beloved friend succumb to fever, feeling the mother's grief like a physical blow, yet knowing that to reverse death then would unravel the very fabric of the mortal experience I had embraced. It would have been a denial of the sacredness of the finite, the beauty of the setting sun. The signs were acts of desperate love, yes, but also admissions of profound limitation. I could mend a broken body, but the broken spirit, that required a surrender I could only model, not enforce. I could offer living water, but they had to choose to drink, to kneel at the well of their own parched souls. The adulation curdled. The whispers turned to shouts. The comfortable structures, the intricate latticework of rules that gave order but often choked compassion, felt my presence like a tremor threatening their foundations. I didn't come to shatter the lattice, but to show the vine growing through it, wild and life-giving. They mistook the vine for a wrecking ball. The turning point wasn't a grand sermon, but a quiet act of unbearable intimacy, washing the grime from the feet of my companions, the one who would deny me, the one who would betray. Kneeling there, the cool water swirling around calloused skin, I felt the crushing weight of their imminent failure, my own failure to make them understand. It was a farewell etched in humility. The entry into the city, hailed like a king, it felt hollow, a pageant played out on a stage I hadn't chosen. The palm fronds were soft, but they scratched my skin like accusations. I knew the script. The path was narrowing, the light focusing to a single searing point. The anguish in the garden wasn't fear of physical pain, though that was a dark cloud on the horizon. It was the suffocating terror of abandonment, not by my father, whose presence was a constant terrifying hum, but by everyone. The utter aloneness of carrying the unbearable weight of love to its most brutal, seemingly futile conclusion. The cup wasn't just suffering. It was the dregs of human rejection, the taste of love poured out and trampled underfoot. "Why have you forsaken me?" was not a theological question. It was the raw, guttural cry of the human heart at the absolute limit of endurance, feeling the crushing vacuum where human solidarity should have been. It was the echo of every soul who has ever felt utterly, desolately alone. The cross wasn't a throne. It was an instrument of ultimate exposure, of radical vulnerability. Each nail was a punctuation mark in a sentence of surrender. The weight wasn't just the wood. It was the accumulated sorrow of ages, the crushing indifference, the final gasping breaths of 1,000 injustices. I absorbed it, not as a passive sponge, but as a lightning rod, grounding the storm of human pain into the receptive earth. The sky didn't darken in anger, it wept in solidarity. It is finished. Not a cry of defeat, but a whisper of profound, terrifying completion. The work wasn't conquest, it was the ultimate act of trust. Like a seed, casing splitting open in the dark earth, releasing its vital spark, not knowing if it would rot or rise. This is the final, mind-shifting truth. Resurrection isn't about the empty tomb. That's merely the signpost, the overturned stone pointing the way. True resurrection happens in you. It's the moment my surrender ignites your own courage. When the leper you shunned becomes the neighbor you embrace. When the stone of judgment in your hand thuds harmlessly to the ground, replaced by the open palm of forgiveness. When you choose the long, hard road of love over the swift, satisfying path of force, I am the blueprint you carry within your own fragile, magnificent heart. I am the current in your river, the source spring whispering to your spirit, the bank witnessing your journey. My life wasn't a performance for your admiration. It was an invitation to step into your own impossible, ordinary, utterly divine becoming. So here I am, not enthroned on distant clouds dispensing judgment. I am the quiet insistence in your conscience when cruelty tempts. I am the unexpected warmth that blooms in your chest when you offer kindness without thought of return. I am the tear that falls for a stranger's pain, the hand extended across the chasm of difference, the stubborn hope that flickers in the deepest night. To be me, you see, is simply to remember. You are the light, too. Scattered, yes, fragile, always, but inextinguishable. Carry it, not as a burden, but as a breath, not as my name, but as your own true nature unfolding. The kingdom isn't out there. It's in here, beating,